You know, Uganda has actually been under this sort of fighting for the last 2 decades. And if you think about it, they've actually come from a period where we had Idi Amin with his own tyranny and a lot of oppression on the people themselves. They've come with the vision that they would like to rule Uganda by the biblical text, using the 10 Commandments as the pretext for that enforcement. Again, they've come with a lot of violence, intimidation. We've seen families being ripped apart. Close to 1.5 million people have been displaced completely as a result of this war, not to mention over 200,000 children who themselves have been forcibly taken from their families, forcibly taken from their communities to engage with this army. And they've been drugged, a lot of them have been given guns, arms, and allowed to carry the most atrocious atrocities that the world has ever seen. To cap it up, you've had women who've been taken away from their families, who've been used as sex slaves. So the Lord Resistance Army, I'm afraid, has let everybody down, and let everybody down terribly.
Right. Mr. Johnson, under the pretext of religion, of Christianity?
That's my understanding.
Right.
But again, not necessarily Christianity, but the biblical text of the fact that of what the 10 Commandments stands for is what they've been using as the means of coming to power. But also over time they've evolved. They've had so many commanders over the last 20 years, and of course naturally the enforcement and use of children in this fighting has really changed the equation. It has meant that Museveni, the president of Uganda, has been able to get a lot of support from the international community, and they've backed him heavily to defeat the rebels. But he's not been able to do so. The rebels themselves have stood firm, stood their positions, and they've really threatened a lot of people. A lot of communities are living in camps in fear, total fear of actually the suppression that the army, the rebels have actually imposed on them. Right. But to give you some flavor of this,
Excuse me, can I get a word in?
They're talking about the peace deal currently.
All right, I'm going to let you talk about the peace deal in just a little bit. Mr. Almadi, the question that a lot of people are asking right now watching this program is, why hasn't the Ugandan military been able to defeat them?
Because the Ugandan military has had no interest in defeating the Lord's Resistance Army. The Lord's Resistance Army is the other side of the same coin, as is the Ugandan militaristic government. The government of Uganda has pushed out all political dialogue, all political space in Uganda, and completely militarized the political environment. The government of Uganda has relied on military as solution to this crisis, and thereby helped promote the Lord's Resistance Army. The camps in Uganda, where 2 million civilians are confined, the narrative of that camp is the complete phony story that I've ever seen in the world, including by the Ugandan foreign minister lying about the genesis of this camp on the BBC in an interview last year. These camps were created by order of the Ugandan government in 1996. People were ordered to abandon their homes within 48 hours under the pretext that that would be the best solution to protect them from the Lord's Resistance Army. Now, it turns out that these camps have been turned into death camps. According to a study conducted by the Uganda's government's own Ministry of Health in conjunction with the World Health Organization, up to 1,000 people were dying per week in those camps. That means in 1 year's time, we have 52,000 people dying in those camps. That means in the last 10 years, in those camps, some of them have been more than 10 years in existence, but it means that at least in the last 10 years, 520,000 people have died in those camps. These death rates, even the LRA would envy these kind of death rates if they could have killed as many Ugandans as have died in those camps. The problem in Uganda has been the LRA as well as the militaristic government of Yoweri Museveni.
All right,
the biggest victims have been the civilians in Uganda.
Mr. Johnson, do you think that these two are the two sides of the same coin? Would you agree with that analysis?
Well, no, I would disagree. For one, the Museveni's government is the government of recognition across the world, that is. The Lord Resistance Army has used thuggery, intimidation and violence of the worst kind, as we've seen over the last 20 years. But in saying that, the government has acted no better, but they've actually got the upper hand because they've come through the democratic process and has been seen to do so. And of course, now at this junction, we do have the opportunity for peace, which we'll discuss later.
All right, let's talk about it now,
it's
actually.
Not true.
All right, go ahead.
It's not true.
Mr. Ali
It's not true. The government of Uganda did not come through the democratic process. The last elections were clearly stolen from the opposition leader, Dr. Kizza Besigye. First of all, he was arrested on some phony charges of, some sex violation, and then treason charges. They were completely phony. So the president had a head start in campaigning in those elections. Ultimately, it is believed that he ended up losing anyway, although he was declared the victor. And then number two, to give you an indication of why I say the government of Uganda is the opposite side of the same coin. In 2005, the International Court of Justice found Uganda and its army liable for crimes against humanity committed in eastern Congo when Uganda's army occupied eastern Congo and committed the same kind of atrocities that it has perpetrated on the people of Acholi in northern Uganda. And these crimes included genocide, burning people alive in their huts, raping both men and women, and looting natural resources of the Congo. The government of Uganda was assessed $10 billion liability. And then in 2006, the president of the Congo, Joseph Kabila, referred the same matter to the International Criminal Court, which is, according to a report in the Wall Street Journal, published in June 2006, the International Criminal Court is investigating these alleged crimes committed by Uganda, meaning potentially Uganda's top military hierarchy, including the commander-in-chief, President Museveni, could be indicted. And in fact, according to the Wall Street Journal article, President Museveni himself called then UN Secretary General Kofi Annan, urging him to block these investigations. And Kofi Annan, according to the Wall Street Journal article, told him, I have no power to block these investigations.
But Susan, the same thing can be said about the rebels themselves, because they've been accused by...
I am not defending the rebels. I am saying that both of them deserve to end up in the International Criminal Court. I am not by any means defending the LRA. I am saying it is the other side of the same coin.
Oh, fair enough. Fair enough. I'll give you that much. But in saying that, the rebels themselves have been found to be wanting and have been accused for very, very vicious crimes against women, children.
It's beyond wanting. They've committed gross crimes. They've committed gross crimes. It's not only beyond wanting. All I'm saying is that the most appropriate situation would be for both Joseph Kony and Yoweri Museveni to end up in front of the International Criminal Court. That is what I'm saying.
Well, that's a case for the international law and for the international organizations around the world to enforce that. But as we sit here, what we do have is that the rebels have been identified as violating international law, and they're being considered to be brought to book. And of course, the United States...
And rightly so.
And the United States have actually branded the rebels as terrorists. And in fact, as a bargaining chip.
And rightly so. The only question is, why does the United States continue to protect Yoweri Museveni? That is the only matter that needs to be discussed. We're on the same page when we refer to the LRA. I completely agree with you.
I'm pleased that you agree that we're on the same page. But in saying that, the United States are offering us a bargaining chip to take the rebel leaders and their cause away from the terrorist mandate or the umbrella of terrorism on the basis that they do sign. So again, on both sides, we've had atrocities. I think the rebels more so than the government themselves.
No, that's not true. That is not true. That is what's been reported so far.